Hi, it's Jacobit's Learning. We're just going to do two quick problems on inequalities. So let's take a look at what are inequalities. Inequalities, by definition, means that one part of the equation is unequal. Okay, when you have an open-ended situation, you look at this sign. This means anything anything less than 8. So it means that 8 is going to be greater than any solution that goes into this equation, which is x minus a half x. Okay, and here you have your definition. There's an unlimited number of terms less than 8. So you keep this as an arrow. It looks like a ray, but this is a line because it is continuous. And you keep this line going all the way over. Now, why is it closed? Because it has to be 8 or less. So you're thinking about step 1, try to think about what this is going to look like on a number line. So we're right at 8 and we're going down. Okay, that's how you should think. Now, the equation may come out differently, but at least you're thinking which direction it's going, that the line is going to go. Okay, next thing we do is we actually get into solving this problem. But remember, this is really 1x, and this here is really a half x. And you've got to get these terms so that you have them common with a common numerator up top and denominator at the bottom. Don't forget your x's. So when we move to the next slide, we actually do the math. Common denominator is a 2. We did this here. And then what you want to do is 2, because this is 1, you need to make this 2. So it's 2 times 1 is 2. And the 2 is written here, but I'm just going to trace it. So it's 2 times 1. Okay, and over here, this is already done. It's 1 times 1. So you just put the 1 back and you put it over here. So now you have 2 over 2x minus 1 over 2. Does this make sense? This 2 over 2 means 1, because if you divide 2 into 2, you get 1. So now you can move to the next part of the equation. You have a new equation now that you've subtracted 2 over 2 minus 1, because 2 minus 1 is 1. You keep your denominator here. It's a half. So it's a half of x is less than 8. You've got to get rid of the constant in front of the variable. The variable here is x. So you're going to take the multiplicative inverse. Why are you taking the multiplicative inverse? Why are you doing that? Because you have a half x, and this means that this 1/2 times this x is what's together. You don't have a plus sign, so you don't use a plus sign. So the reciprocal of that is, the reciprocal of a half is really going to be the number 2. Now, if you want to make it easier, it's 2 over 1. And I did this over here for you on both sides. We did the 1/2, the 2 over 1 is here. And so this one and this one cross out. Or this is really 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 1. 2 over 2 equals 1. Don't forget the x is left by itself. This is really 1x, which is less than 16. Because this is 8 times 2, which is 16, over 1, but that means it's actually 16. You're fine there. Now all you've got to do is graph it. What are you doing with this equation? All numbers less than 16 are going to be in this graph. Remember I mentioned at the beginning that this would be open? We don't know the true value, so you leave it open. So since we don't know the true value of what it is, we just know that this is less than 16. So it's all these numbers going down to negative infinity. And that's what this shows with a continuous ray here. You're done with that. Okay? If you have any questions, go ahead and email us at jacobitslearning@gmail.com. Okay. Now, this is another equation. This equation has an underlined inequality, which means that whatever this term is greater than or equal to -3. Now keep in mind you have a negative. This is where a lot of people get confused. When you deal with this kind of sign, if this stays negative, you have to change this. You'd have to invert this, change around the face of the sign. We're not there yet though, folk. We're really not. So let's go over to step 2. I just want you to get into thinking about what's going on, what's happening. Okay, so this is number 10. You have n over 2. You must know that because the number is negative, I'm just reiterating something. This is really 1/2 n. I'm sorry, I'm just retracing, is greater than or equal to -3. Keep that in mind so that when you get ready to do the reciprocal, you know that you're going to do 2 over 1 times to get n by itself. And this is the dot so that you know that you multiply once again while you're multiplying. So this means 1/2 times n is n. Okay, so look, you have 1/2 n. Let's get to it. You're doing the reciprocal. It's 2 over 1. And when you get ready to do this, these terms cancel out. 2 goes into itself 1 time, 1 goes into itself 1 time, or you can just do straight 2 like we did in the last equation, over 2, which equals 1. Now it's by itself, n is greater than or equal to 3. You take it over to the other side, you get -3 over 1 times +2, you're going to get a -6. See how we say, newsflash, this is not done? That's because this is a negative. When you have a negative, you're going to have to do what we're doing on the next slide. You have to, I'm sorry, the slide after this, you have to switch the direction of the sign, the inequality sign, only for inequalities, 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 inequalities like this. When it's greater than or equal to, that's the ones you make sure you switch the sign on, the rest of them you don't. Graph in the variable, n is less than or greater than -6. So since -6 is a smaller number and this -5 is actually greater than this -6, okay, the circle has to be here. Why is it closed? Why do you have it closed? Because you have an equal sign. Once you have an equal sign, it's closed. Closed with an equal sign. Open without. So -6 and everything else, the number n is greater than this, so n is any of these values here, all the way towards, I stopped it here, but I could have kept it going, but it goes all the way down to +infinity. Okay, thank you for watching. Like us if you do. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.